Good morning everyone. I am Rashmi Dhiman, PGT English at KV number 3 Pathankot. Today we are going to take up the lesson given in Vistas, the third level. The third level has been written by Jack Finney. The lesson is about the harsh realities of war and its irreversible consequences upon the human life, thus leaving people in a state of insecurity. It is also about the modern day problems and how common man tends to escape reality by various means. In this story, a man named Charlie hallucinates or imagines and reaches the third level of the Grand Central Station, which only has actually 2 levels. Now, the name of the protagonist in this story is Charlie. So I will para-wise I will take up the lesson and give the explanations also. The presidents of the New York Central and the New York, the Haven and Hartford railroads will swear on a stack of timetables that there are only 2. But I say there are 3 because I have been on the third level of the Grand Central Station. Now, the writer says, Jack Finney says, now here he narrates the story on as a first person or as the Charlie. Here the Charlie is narrating his experiences, what he experienced at the Grand Central Station. He says that even the in charges, the presidents of the New York Central and the New York or New Haven, they will swear by the timetables, the schedules. The stack of timetables means the schedules showing departure and arrival of the trains, that there are only 2 levels at the Grand Central Station. But he says that he can swear that there are 3 levels at the Grand Central Station because he witnessed this third level also. Yes, I have taken the obvious step. I talked to a psychiatrist friend of mine. Among others, I told him about the third level at the Grand Central Station and he said it was a waking dream wish fulfillment. Now he took the obvious step. What was the obvious step? Now he thought that he was going crazy. Something was wrong with him. So along with his wife, he went to see a psychiatrist to find out whether he was fine or he was hallucinating or there was some other mental problem with him. And the meaning of a waking dream wish fulfillment is a dream one has while one is awake. Now the doctor says that it was a waking dream wish fulfillment. It was what he saw there was a reality, or he saw what he had been imagining, what he had been looking for in his real life. He said, I was unhappy. That made my wife kind of mad. His wife was unhappy to hear that it was because he was unhappy that he had been having all these things. But he explained that he meant the modern world is full of insecurity, fear, war, worry, and all the rest of it, and that I just want to escape. Well, who doesn't? Everybody I know wants to escape, but they don't wander down into any third level at Grand Central Station. He says that today's man in this modern world, everybody goes through the war, the insecurities, the fears, and all sort of, the things around. But then not everybody imagines or not everybody visits or witnesses this third level. But that's the reason, he said, and my friends all agreed. Everything points to it, they claimed. My stamp collecting, for example, that's a temporary refuge from reality, running away from reality. His friends, his psychiatrist friend, everybody agreed that it was only because he had been trying to run away from his practical life or the practical problems of his life. And they said that the symbol was, or the proof was his stamp collecting habit, because here Charlie was in habit of collecting stamps. Well, maybe, but my grandfather didn't need any refuge from reality. Things were pretty nice and peaceful in his day, from all I hear, and he started my collection. It's a nice collection too, blocks of 4 of practically every US issue, first day covers and so on. President Roosevelt collected stamps too, But here Charlie does not agree to it. He says that his grandfather also had this hobby of stamp collecting, and the stamp collection that he was having at present was the one he was given by his grandfather. It was started by his grandfather, and he disagrees, or he is not ready to believe that his grandfather also had fears or insecurities, and he also wanted to escape. And then he says that President Roosevelt also collected stamps, but then he also did not go through or did not experience any such insecurities. Here the term first day covers mean the people, those who are fond of collecting stamps, what did they do was they would buy the new stamp on the date of its release. They would paste that stamp on the envelope, a blank envelope where there would be no letter inside, and then they would post it on their own address, and then they would be able to keep it as a record. Anyway, here's what happened at Grand Central Station. One night last summer, I worked late at the office. I was in a hurry to get uptown to my apartment, so I decided to take the subway from Grand Central because it's faster than the bus. Now he narrates one such experience. What happens, one day he was working late in his office. In order to reach in time, in order to reach early home, now he decides to take a shortcut. He decides to take the subway from the Grand Central because it was faster than the bus service. Now I don't know why this should have happened to me. I'm just an ordinary guy named Charlie, 31 years old, and I was wearing a tan gabardine suit and a straw hat with a fancy band. I passed a dozen men who looked just like me, and I wasn't trying to escape from anything. I just wanted to get home to Louisa, my wife. Now he says that he doesn't know why it happened to him, because he says that he is just an ordinary guy whose name is Charlie, and he also says that he is 31 years old. Now he talks about the clothes that he had been wearing. He was wearing a tan gabardine suit. Gabardine is a woven material, as a sort of a material for cloth, and a straw hat with a fancy band means the clothes that he had been wearing were similar to the many people around him were wearing. So he looked just ordinary. He was one among the other people, and now he was in a hurry to reach his home to his wife Louisa. I turned into Grand Central from Vanderbilt Avenue and went down the steps to the first level, where you take trains like the 20th century. Then I walked down another flight to the second level, where the suburban trains leave from. Ducked into an arched doorway, heading for the subway, and got lost. That's easy to do. I have been in and out of Grand Central hundreds of times, but I'm always bumping into new doorways and stairs and corridors. Once I got into a tunnel about a mile long and came out in the lobby of the Roosevelt Hotel. Another time I came up in an office building on 46th Street, 3 blocks away. He narrates his past experiences also. While he was trying to catch a train from the Grand Central, now he gets lost on his way, and he says that it was not the first time that he had lost his way. He experienced such type of things earlier also, many a times. Sometimes I think Grand Central is growing like a tree, pushing out new corridors and staircases like roots. There's probably a long tunnel that nobody knows about, feeling its way under the city right now. He says that Grand Central had been spreading all around the city. Around the Times Square. Now it's way to Times Square and maybe another to Central Park. These are all the branches that are going to the different parts of the Grand Central Station. Because for so many people through the years, Grand Central has been an exit, a way of escape. Maybe that's how the tunnel I got into, but I never told my psychiatrist friend about that idea. He feels that Grand Central is a place of exit for innumerable people. He also managed to escape reality because of the same reason, although he never shared it with his psychiatrist friend, whose name was Sam. The corridor I was in began angling left and slanting downward, and I thought I was wrong, but I kept on walking. All I could hear was the empty sound of my own footsteps, and I didn't pass a soul. I didn't pass a soul means he didn't meet anyone on the way. Then I heard that sort of hollow roar ahead, that means open space and people talking. The tunnel turned sharp left. I went down a short flight of stairs and came out on the third level at Grand Central Station. Now he found himself at the third level at Grand Central Station, where he had never been before. For just a moment, I thought I was back on the second level, but I saw the room was smaller. At first, he thought that he was back at the second level, but then the surroundings, the ambience was different. The room was smaller, there were fewer ticket windows and train gates, and the information booth in the center was wood and old looking, and the man in the booth wore a green shade and long black sleeve protectors. The lights were dim and sort of flickering. Then I saw why. They were open flame gas lights. The ambience, the things around, the type of clothes the people were wearing, the wooden cabin and the gas stove, all these suggested that he was somewhere, in the past, in the 19th century. There were brass spittoons on the floor. The spittoons are the pots, the brass pots or the earthen pots which are meant for spitting away. There were brass spittoons on the floor, and across the station a glint of light caught my eye. A man was pulling a gold watch from his vest pocket. Now he tells about other evidences that suggested that he was somewhere in the 19th century, ahead past of his own time. He snapped open the cover, glanced at his watch and frowned. He wore a derby hat, a black 4-button suit with tiny lapels, and he had a big black handlebar mustache. Then I looked around and saw that everyone in the station was dressed like 1890 something. He could figure out that he was somewhere in the past, 1819 something, but he was still not sure. I never saw so many beards, sideburns and fancy mustaches in my life. The sideburns that people used to have, the different designs of their sideburns, and the mustaches, different type of mustaches. A woman walked in through the train gate. She wore a dress with leg of mutton sleeve. The leg of mutton sleeve is a long sleeve, puffed up in between, old-fashioned, old style, and skirts to the top of her high-buttoned shoes. Back of her, out on the tracks, I caught a glimpse of a locomotive. Locomotive is a powered railway vehicle used for pulling trains. A very small Currier and Ives locomotive with a funnel-shaped stack, and then I knew. And then he knew what? And then he knew that he was somewhere in the past. To make sure, I walked over to a newsboy and glanced at the stack of papers at his feet. It was The World. The World here is the name of the newspaper that he found there. A boy was having a stack of these newspapers, and he had kept these newspapers with him for selling. So when he looked at this newspaper, The World hasn't been published for years. Now he was sure. The lead story said something about President Cleveland. I have found that front page since in the public library files, and it was printed June 11, 1894. To be precise, now he found himself somewhere in 1894. We can say that this person, Charlie, finds himself transported into the past, a type of time travel that we witness. There are many such stories. You might find it a little weird. How can the things happen like this in the story? But then there are fiction stories. You need not try to find any logic to the stories. It is meant only for reading and your enjoyment. Like we watch the series of Doraemon. We used to have Alice in Wonderland, or the Chronicles of Narnia, and all these things. We see that the door opens or a person gets transported into the past. So the same thing here happens with a Charlie also. I turned towards the ticket window, knowing that there on the third level at Grand Central, I could buy tickets that would take Louisa and me anywhere in the United States. We wanted to go in the year 1894, and I wanted 2 tickets to Galesburg, Illinois. Now this person, Charles, he thought that since he found himself in the past, he could go anywhere in the United States. So he decided that he wanted to go to Galesburg, Illinois. So he went there to buy 2 tickets, one for himself and one for his wife. Have you ever been there? It's a wonderful town still, with big old frame houses, huge lawns, and tremendous trees whose branches meet overhead and roof the streets. And in 1894, summer evenings were twice as long and people sat out on their lawns, the men smoking cigars and talking quietly, the women waving palm leaf fans with the fireflies all around in a peaceful world. To be back there with the First World War still 20 years off and Second World War II over 40 years in the future. I wanted 2 tickets for that. Now he says he finds himself going back to Illinois, to Galesburg. That was, the time when the First World War and the Second World War had not taken place. There were still 20 years for the First World War and 40 years for the Second World War. And why does he want to go to that place? We can assume that maybe he had read about that place, that it was a beautiful place, that it was a peaceful place, and he always wanted to experience, he always wanted to live that type of life. He always wished that he could go back to that time when the things were quite peaceful, when the ambience was beautiful, when people were not in any type of hurry. The clerk figured the fare. Now he tried to give money to the clerk, the ticket clerk. Now he figured the fare. He looked at the fare, the money. He glanced at my fancy hardband, but he figured the fare. And I had enough for 2 coach tickets, one way. But when I counted out the money and looked up, the clerk was staring at me. He nodded at the bills. That ain't money, mister, he said, and if you are trying to skin me means to cheat me, you won't get very far. And he glanced at the cash drawer beside him. Of course, the money was old style bills, half again as big as the money we use nowadays, and different looking. I turned away and got out fast. There's nothing nice about jail, even in 1894. So when he tried to pay for the tickets, for the 2 tickets that he was planning to buy for himself and for his wife, when he handed over the money to the ticket clerk looked at him suspiciously and told him that it wasn't money. Obviously, because the currency that Charlie was trying to give to this clerk did not belong to that time. So he said, the clerk seemed angry, and he said that if you are trying to cheat me, you won't get very far. You won't be able to succeed. And the Charlie thought that it was better for him to escape from that place as soon as possible, because if he's handed over to the police, that wouldn't be a nice thing. And that was that. I left the same way I came, I suppose. Next day during lunch hour, I drew $300 out of the bank, nearly all we had, and bought old style currency. That really worried my psychiatrist friend. Now what did he do was, next day he went to the bank and he drew out $100, $300, all that he had, and he went to get it exchanged for old style currency, and his psychiatrist friend was really worried. You can buy old money at almost any coin dealers, but you have to pay a premium, extra amount you have to pay for that. My $300 bought less than 200 in old style bills, but I didn't care. But still Charlie was satisfied, because eggs were 13 cents a dozen in 1894. Those were the cheaper times. So he thought that this much money would be sufficient for him to settle down with his wife in Illinois. But I have never again found the corridor that leads to the 3rd level at Grand Central Station, although I have tried often enough. And when, after getting his money exchanged, when he tried to get back to the 3rd level to buy the tickets, he could never get that 3rd level again, even though he kept looking for it. Louisa was pretty worried when I told her all this and didn't want me to look for the 3rd level anymore. His wife was worried and she thought that he shouldn't be looking for the 3rd level anymore. She told him not to look for it. And after a while I stopped. I went back to my stamps, to his hobby of stamp collecting. But now we are both looking every weekend. But then they both started looking for the 3rd level every weekend, because now we have proof that the 3rd level is still there. What makes them believe so is, my friend Sam Weiner disappeared. Nobody knew, but I sort of suspected, because Sam's a city boy and I used to tell him about Galesburg. I went to school there and he always said he liked the sound of the place, and that's where he is, all right, in 1894. Because now he had got proofs that his psychiatrist friend Sam, along with his wife, had gone to Illinois, Galesburg in 1890.